partly.
Okay, we are live. Beautiful sunrise over North Yorkshire. There we go. Get the sun shines on the righteous, Eddie. Must be on you. It can't be on me. So let's get the camera set. You must be standing on higher ground. I think let's swap round. Yeah, there we go. It doesn't make the blind bit of difference. There we go.
Good morning.
Good morning, all. Well, we're at the back of the well site. As you can see, they haven't yet managed to get the sight screens up. Originally, this was supposed to be 3 containers, but it seems that Third Energy have decided that putting scaffolding and screen up is going to be cheaper than and easier somewhat than bringing in 3 containers.
Well, it would be a lot more lorry movements for us to interrupt as well. I think that might have been part of the strategy.
It may well have been. So, Eddie, yesterday was quite an interesting day. Do you want to sort of walk us through the day?
Well, it was another phenomenal day. We started the week off really well. There was a big lock-on at 4 o'clock in the morning, a huge lock-on, a monster, and it was the first men's lock-on. And they really struggled to cut that, didn't they?
They had a lot of problems because they started early. They got out much earlier than normal.
Yeah, the cutting team started about 8:30, which is very early. And I mean, we had a very good vantage point because at that point there was a tower, and those guys were sweating with what looked like a barrel full of tar, wasn't it?
It looked that way, and there was multi-layered. I mean, from the vantage point, we could see that it was a gas canister that had been filled with what looked like tar and wood.
There was wood in there,
and then some foam as well.
Yeah, and they took the still saw and were trying to cut the top off so they could get a look in, but obviously because of the viscosity or the stickiness of the tar, they couldn't crowbar the lid off it. So then they had to cut it into strips. So I think that was a very good design by whoever made it.
Yeah. It certainly kept them challenged, and I mean they were at it for about 5 hours, I think. Yeah. And the guys were in the lock-on for nearly 10 hours, I think it was. Yeah,
well, because they chose to deploy at 4 in the morning because the police are now cordoning off the site throughout the night, which makes it harder to deploy, I imagine. So yeah, early start means long time lying on the floor, but they were troopers. They did a good day and they closed the site down for half of the day. And in total we had 2 tankers coming in and the same 2 tankers going off.
And the 2 tankers, it looks like they're coming in to remove fluids that they're using to flush the pipes between the Knapton generating station and here at KIRBY MISPERTON.
Yeah, and so that means that yeah, they're probably flushing clean water, mains water from Knapton through here and collecting it here. But that makes me think Knapton might be a nice place to have a little pop-up.
Yeah, maybe people should actually explore the possibilities at Knapton Power Station.
Yeah, and because the North Yorkshire Police are focusing all their resources on this gate here, so if we could like separate the protest into 2 places, then that would, make it a little bit more interesting.
Was Third Energy's Knapton Power Station, which is really their only means of generating revenue, is a little bit of a sort of it's a toy town generating station really, because it only generates for something like about 50 days of the year.
Well, yeah, it's on the Black Watch.
Exactly.
They call it. So they only fire it up when the mains is when the grid is overstretched, and they get paid a retainer for that. It's peanuts. They're producing about 10% capacity from their conventional wells. So if we can stop them from fracking, they're finished.
Well, and I mean, they don't need to frack. Obviously, what they're just hoping here is that they can turn Third Energy just from a generating operation on Blackwatch to an actual producer into the grid,
and then flog it.
Exactly, flog the company, that is. Yeah, to INEOS
potentially.
Yeah. So we'll come back to INEOS in a second, but the tower. Now I was live streaming from the tower. You were taking some stills from the top of the tower, some good close-up stills of the removal team, and Steve Spy, as he's known on Facebook, and Bambuza, he was up there with us as well. So the tower, which had manifested over the weekend, was a very solid structure. I mean, there's no possible way that I was going up there unless I felt completely comfortable that it was safe. And especially as the winds were gusting yesterday at about 40 plus kilometers an hour, and it was, you know, very breezy at times. And yet the tower was solid, but the police had a real problem with it.
They did. And this is more evidence of their strategy, I think, to limit the visibility of our protest and their shoddy policing. We've seen time and again them manufacturing reasons to stop filming. Like, you were thrown into the hedge, into the ditch. Sorry, they put up these blue screens around the sterile area to stop anybody even looking in. And this part of the reason, I imagine, for this tower to go up was to give a vantage point to the live streamers, so that we can cover it, because social media is an amazing tool for us. It really gets our message out there in the way that mainstream media never does, and it also allows us to kind of have some security with how the police deal with us. So the tower was a brilliant vantage point, and the stills I got were amazing. Your live stream was amazing, and obviously the police were not happy with that, so they manufactured this reason of health and safety to not allow anybody else up the tower, and basically kettled the three of us in. I left because I had other stuff to do, but you and Spy stayed up there a while, and Spy until the end.
Well, and John Margaret, we invited John Margaret to come up with us. I mean, so we were more than comfortable that the tower could hold us all, and they told John that the concerns they had about his safety was that he might get splinters in his hands.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. Might get splinters in his hands from the wood.
Oh, God.
So, you know, I mean, they were literally just making it up as they go along. I mean, it is farcical, and that's why we encourage people to come down here, because actually, you know, the police provide, inadvertently, I have to say, but they actually provide us with some entertainment. But they don't realise just how absurd that they're being. I mean, whether they're actually making it up or whether they're given sort of bullet points that they might want to use during the day.
I think they're just given the headline, and they have got to, like, think on their feet of how to ram it through. Like Dave Hannon from York will say, no, do what you can, use what bullshit laws you can to make sure that this happens, and then the poor officers have to scrabble around making up excuses.
Well, Inspector Fenton, I mean, I get the impression that he's an old school police officer, and you know, finds himself somewhat sort of bemused to be in this situation. Inspector Johnny, and by the way, John, I now do know your family name, but seeing as you're so concerned about it being out in the public domain, I will keep it to myself then, and you know, hopefully you can show a similar restraint when you're on the front line here, probably next week. But you know, these two guys, I feel, are very much the pawns. You know, I don't think they're particularly comfortable in this role. They are Dave Hannon's pawns, and Dave Hannon is obviously the pawn of the Gold Commander, and he in turn the pawn from central government.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of a part Dave Jones is having in this, the Chief Constable.
Well, I think Dave Jones is having an enormous part, because we have some information that I'm not going to share just yet because it is sub judice. But we have some information that Dave Jones has been very much involved in setting a strategy, not just for fracking, but of any dissent or civil disobedience at a national level. So it's clearly something that, I mean, this has become really far more than just about fracking. I mean, this is about the fundamentals of, well, democracy, of the ability to actually dissent against a central government decision, especially when that decision is made against the will of the various communities.
But it's interesting, we've had a message out of the Tory conference day before yesterday from somebody who works in the government, saying now is the time to lobby your police and crime commissioner, your MP, about the use of police resources in the fracking, because central government is starting to lose its appetite for fracking, and this is word from inside the conference. So I would encourage everybody to get on to Julia Mulligan in Yorkshire, or your equivalent in Lancashire and anywhere else, and also your MPs, and just say, why are we wasting £500,000 a month on each of these frack pads? You know, we don't need it, and central government apparently are getting the message, so keep up the good work.
Well, and the pressure is likely to increase later this month. I mean, the Sunday Herald at the weekend in Scotland ran an article which reportedly had the inside track that the Scottish government are on the brink of announcing an outright ban on fracking in Scotland. Now this is very significant because the area that's licensed in Scotland is right across the central belt where the bulk of the population live.
And where Grangemouth is, and so Jim Ratcliffe must be spitting feathers. And we know he was been lobbying at the Tory conference. So I think he's probably shitting himself a little bit and trying to make sure that if he doesn't get Scotland, then at least he gets the north of England. But why should we give that to him if Scotland are going against it?
Well, if Scotland do announce the ban, and the ban is expected to be announced, if it is a ban, it's expected to be announced towards the latter part of the month. The Scottish Parliament returns from its recess on October 20th. But the likely process is going to be that whatever the Scottish Government puts forward then has to go before the Scottish Parliament, and the likelihood is that if it is an outright ban, then it will be passed. And of course, as you rightly say, Jim Ratcliffe will be not just spitting feathers, I mean he's going to be incandescent. And of course he's going to focus his energies on Westminster to get them to sort of push ahead with these licences across the north of England.
Yeah. Well, we're ready for you, Jim.
Well, yeah, it's 1.2 million acres and across the north of England, and of course a massive raft of North Yorkshire, just to the south of here, is all INEOS licences. In fact, beneath the south, to the south of where we're standing right now, of this third energy licence, it's Quadrilla and INEOS. So, you know, these are the two major players, and Jim Ratcliffe clearly has designs on being the literal JR, because that is his initials. Yeah. He has designs on being the JR of onshore hydrocarbons in the UK.
But I think what he hasn't taken into account is there is a huge community opposition to that, and even if he does get his draconian injunction in some form, I think this is a subject that people will be willing to serve time for. And I'm not just talking about me, I'm talking about Middle England, older community members are willing to serve time for this.
Well, and you know what we're seeing here right now. I mean, we've just come from the gates, which is about 400 or 500 metres from us as the crow flies, and we're looking down on it right now. And the North Yorkshire Police have had two police vans parked across the gates all night.
I was sleeping at the caravan, looking after Nana Lockon's caravan, and they were shining torches in the hedges at 4 o'clock this morning. They were doing patrols with security, looking for lock-ons in the hedges at 4 this morning.
And they've cut the grass on the verge all the way up to the village, so yeah, they're very nervous. But obviously, you know, what we've seen over the last few weeks is the total shutdown of any form of protest. So North Yorkshire Police are taking the attitude right now that basically they can do what the hell they want, yeah, and it won't get challenged. Yeah. So they can ride roughshod over legislation and it's not going to get challenged.
Yeah. I mean, yesterday we had a disabled man with his one good arm in a lock-on tube, and he was suffering from high blood pressure and a bit of pain, and they refused welfare, even though under the PACE guidelines or law, it's an individual is permitted to elect their own welfare officer. But like you say, if we're not challenging this, if people don't challenge all these unlawful decisions, then that gives them carte blanche to do what they want.
Well, I hope to be discussing this and much more with Kevin Blows of Netpole on Thursday's episode of Fracking Nightmare, which will be going out at 9 o'clock on Thursday. But so, you know, we've got the community here very much behind us. I mean, obviously there's a lot of the community that have to work. I mean, the farmers have told us that obviously they would be here with us, but obviously it's a very busy time of year for them, so they can't be with us. So, you know, we're very grateful to the retirees who come down, and the mums who drop their kids off at school and come down, and of course the wonderful Jackie and Jim who provide the tea and coffee and cake stall at the gates, regardless of the weather. They're here every day. So, you know, there's no need for people to be concerned about the behaviour of the police. They can watch from a very, very safe area, but we do want people to come down, because I have to say that, I mean, yesterday, in fact, I tagged my live stream of what was going on, and we'll talk about the fire brigade in a second. But I tagged my live stream that if I hadn't seen it for myself, I would never have believed it. Yeah. Because some of this absurdity you actually have to witness. You cannot believe that you are living in the UK, because this is This is the UK that isn't reported. This is the UK that basically permits democracy, provided you just roll over and go along with whatever the British government tells you is good for you.
But I think also we're having a big day today. People knew that there's 2 big events happening today, so maybe they saw that the site was locked down. You know, not everybody can spend 24 hours on this, so I wasn't too upset with the level of turnout yesterday, because I knew today was going to be a big one. We've got Jonathan Bartley from the Green Party, the joint leader of the Green Party, coming at 9:30, so he's going to be speaking at 10. That should be a big event. And then this afternoon the farmers are doing another event. They're doing a harvest festival to celebrate local produce. They're going to bring the foods that they've grown in this land to the gates to make a display, and then they're going to sell that to the people there to raise money for the campaign. So that should be a beautiful event this evening, and I think that the actual ceremony or whatever is going to be at 6:30.
Okay, so and the weather actually looked quite reasonable. The wind, fortunately, has calmed down. We had a bit of wind damage on camp,
yeah,
but nothing too serious. But it's bright, and remarkably, it's a cloudless sky. You know what? There aren't even any of those strange aircraft trails that we see covering the sky most days now. This is a beautiful, clear, crisp autumn sky. And you know, so this should actually be something that people recognise as not being the usual skies, sadly, right now. But that's a whole nother subject. Anyway, before we close off, let's just talk about the absurdity that happened with the fire brigade yesterday afternoon. Because after the wooden structure, I came down from the wooden structure, obviously after the people had released them, after people had been released from the lock-on. But Inspector Fenton then made another attempt to force us down. Well, I was coming down anyway, so it was no real issue for me, but he got pretty stroppy, and there was no need for it. But you know, he was making it clear that basically he was going to use up the last remaining bits of testosterone in his bloodstream and show who was king on the hill, and threatened that unless everybody came down, then they would be potentially arrested or removed, arrested, and then the tower destroyed. Well, Steve, to his credit, decided to call him out on that, so he stayed up in the tower, and then the police called the fire brigade.
But Steve said he was coming down at 6 o'clock.
He did indeed. I stated originally that we'd be down at 6, and Steve agreed we'd be at 6 o'clock, yes.
Yeah, he was causing no obstruction to anybody. He was causing no harm to anybody. The police were saying he was obstructing a police officer and obstructing the highway by standing on a 6-foot wooden platform at the side of the hedge. So, I mean, it's preposterous. But, yeah, so he said, I'm coming down at 6, but I think it was at 5 that they sent in the fire brigade. And it was a very embarrassed-looking fire brigade. Well,
it wasn't just the fire brigade. This was the North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service extending platform from Scarborough.
Yeah.
So this essential piece of equipment, which I'm sure gets used on a relatively regular basis in Scarborough, which is you know, one of the largest communities in the area, has to come 24 miles down to KIRBY Misperton to remove a guy, as you say, that's standing on a platform. And I counted, it was 9 rungs of the ladder.
Right.
It was 9 rungs of a ladder high, and the fire brigade made it clear that they weren't going to get in the basket to bring him down. So the police had to bring in their specialist rescue crew
from West Yorkshire. So you had people from climbers from West Yorkshire sitting in a cherry picker from Scarborough that the North Yorkshire Fire Brigade had to operate, so that the North Yorkshire Police could remove a man from a 6-foot tower on the side of a road that was causing no obstruction to a PC or the highway. And I mean, the real tragedy of this, and I've really felt for those fire officers, because the Fire Brigades Union has actually voted on an anti-fracking motion. They're against fracking, and yet here they are on the day after that the Catalan fire officers were protecting citizens from the police. Here is North Yorkshire Fire Brigade forced into a situation where their equipment and their officers is being used to facilitate fracking, which they have voted against in their union. And we're encouraging people to contact that union, but to do it in a civil and a polite way, to ask for solidarity. The chief, or the head of the union, is a guy called Matt Rack. You can find him on Twitter, W-R-A-C-K.
Twitter or Twitter?
Twitter.
Okay.
and just ask him, like, why is this going on, and can we have some solidarity for a subject that you voted against?
Exactly. And I mean, it wasn't as though he was up a 30-foot tower. I mean, the absurdity of this, I mean, it was almost like a comedy sketch. It was like a 70s comedy. You know, if it had been a sketch in something like The New Statesman, then, you know, it would have been right in place here. And I could tell that, you know, some of the officers, I mean, they didn't sign up for this. I mean, unfortunately, you know, some of them are enjoying the rough and tumble with the pensioners a little bit too much. But for most of them, they didn't sign up for this, and they looked acutely embarrassed by the absurdity of this situation yesterday.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, God knows what the discussion was in the vans on the way back. I mean, obviously they don't like the fact that we're exposing it, which is, you know, why they want to shut down all filming.
Yeah, it's a circle, isn't it? The tower was removed to stop us filming. We filmed it and you know, humiliated them a little bit online because. Yeah, it was bizarre.
What else could you do?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just an absurdity. So, I mean, I'm sure that, and of course, none of this is scripted. I mean, it just unfolds. You know, we never know what the day is going to bring. You know, beyond a sort of broad outline. And obviously, you know, the more people that come down, the more the police, from wherever they are drafted in, can see that the local community do not want this industry. And like I said, the pressure is going to increase significantly, I think, towards the end of the month.
Yeah.
So the camera shot here is across the well site. So we have the sunrise coming in, you know, from the east here. As you can see, the sight screens are not yet up. The scaffolding that's being built around here is to hold the screens. It's going to be interesting when we get the winds.
Yeah.
Because you know, the containers obviously could withstand the winds, but the screens are going to suffer, I think, some pretty serious problems come the winter months. But anyway, obviously they're there to prevent us once again from filming, from observing what's occurring here.
Good job, we've got a drone.
Yes, yeah, the drone could be getting quite a lot of usage. Unfortunately, the drone can be operated in quite strong winds as well, can't it? And it's geostationary. So, you know, hey, and of course we know that the legislation is being put in place, or the groundwork is being put in place to bring about legislation to stop the drones. And of course it's all related supposedly to the prospective terrorism, which of course is manufactured in most cases to drive an agenda. And that agenda, of course, is once again to stop further scrutiny. So, Eddie, I'm going to have to take a few days out. Got to get back to the south of England. So you're going to be giving the live streams over the next few days?
Yep, yeah.
So where can people tune into those live streams?
If you search for the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp on Facebook, you'll find our page. We'll be doing a live stream at 8:30, same day, same time as always. But it's going directly to that page because we want to drive traffic there. So please join the page and share it with all your friends, and join us 8:30 every weekday, either here or at the gate, depending on internet.
And then check the Kirby Misperton Protection Camp page for live stream updates, because if anything does transpire through the days, then it will be broadcast on that page. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Well, as I say, it's a beautiful day here. I was going to drive back south last night, but it was a long day, so I'm going to be back on the road today. So I'll be back probably in a week or so. So I'll catch you then, Eddie.
Cool.
Best of luck, my friend.
It's been fun.
Hasn't it just? Okay, enjoy the day, and hopefully see you down at the Kirby Misperton well site or at the protection camp sometime very soon. Thanks a lot.